Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Block Party number 55. We're having a focused conversation about the universal calendar, about SNAC.bar, about this, which is seeming to take the place of the shit that we were talking about yesterday. Anyway, we'll get to those details. But what I was starting to make a comment about why I'm not so concerned about the money side, and that's for this reason. We are right on the cusp of creating a whole new internet, the internet of conversations. And within that, which is a whole huge space, which really includes conversations on literally anything, including a whole bunch of stuff that, quite frankly, we would despise. Okay, so within this broader internet of conversations, who are we and what are we trying to do here? Let me kind of phrase it and kind of chunk it out in the following way. And I kind of want to draw some pictures here. Not that I'm going to be monologuing too long. So,
Hello.
hey, is this?
Will it
Yeah.
be okay to say something now?
Oh, please, Sister Ivy, go ahead.
Uh, I apologize, but my raise hand icon is not coming out. If anybody knows what I can do, quick thing, that would be great. But if not, can I just unmute if I need to say something?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, no problem.
I'm sorry. I don't know why, but it's not there. Sometimes it has happened. Thank you. That's why I couldn't offer this as soon as we restarted, because I guess you didn't see it was on mute or something, sorry. But I wanted to offer some inspirational quotes if they are okay. And that's what I wanted to say from when I unmute. Would that be okay?
Yeah, go ahead, Sister Ivy. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. This is my loving offer always. First of all, even if we are told, and even more men, that we don't have fears, they will always be hiding somewhere. So I offer these quotes for no fear. This is the day, and we can say this is the meeting that the spirit, divine universal mind has made. Be glad, give thanks, rejoice, stand in divine love's presence, unafraid. And this is from that universal spirit and mind and love, so amazing strength and force that we all have backing us up because we're doing good. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. Or whatever name we call it is fine. I will help you. I will strengthen you. I will uphold you with the power of my righteousness. Divine mind has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a wise mind. We are made and kept in divine mind's image and likeness. Fearless. We are wonderfully made. We have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but we have received the spirit of adoption for all goodness. And I read this quote that I have gotten before, and I'm not saying citations, but anybody that would like to know, just text me or chat me, whatever. This beautiful quote, my absolute favorite quote, almost of all, that even if we all have this love for goodness and for doing all the good we can, it's not bad to be reminded of this. It says, children, the world has need of you, and more as children than as men and women. It needs your innocence, unselfishness, faithful affection, uncontaminated lives. You need to also watch and pray that you preserve these virtues unstained and do not lose them through contact with the world. That's my very favorite quote. And this is something that is very effective in my work, and I lovingly share it. It's about being unassailable. And assailable is to be attacked. And so unassailable, this is the way we were created. Even though we get attacked so much, is because we may not know enough that we are this unassailable. And we all get, of course. It says we are completely unassailable. We were made that way. We have at all times, places, and situations the complete protection of an almighty power, spiritual, supreme. All the strength of spirit, all the protection of a great divine love for all the goodness, joy, and beauty of soul. We are clad in the panoply of love. And this was made by the author by the panoply. Some people don't know, but we have seen it in pictures for sure. But the panoply was that armor that people used to when they fought against each other with just weapons. And it was all a metal armor that covered the whole thing. I'm sure right now you can remember that even in high school we saw it. Just completely covered metal armor, and that was called the panoply. But brought into spiritual terms, this author got it into the panoply of divine love. That love that is covering us, all of us. And knowing this takes fears away. I can attest to that. So it says, clad in the panoply of love, human hatred, attraction, willfulness, disobedience, personal sense, lust, or envy cannot touch us. We are only governed by the universal divine mind. And I would just share those very lovingly, and thank you for letting me do it.
Absolutely, Sister Ivy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Abby.
You're very welcome.
Bye, everybody. I have to
Oh,
go.
BJ. Hey, great to see you, BJ.
Yeah, I think we're really moving in a good direction. Getting together, and we'll come up with something.
Me too. Come back soon. Come back soon.
Thanks. Bye.
See you soon. All right, and it looks like we're being joined by August, who we met at Kiko Lab. Dot has a request for a video. Definitely we can share that. Let me just welcome August, and then I want to screen share. August, welcome. Great to see you.
Hey, what's up, guys? Nice to see you too. This is awesome.
Hey.
I love this. Thank you, guys.
Oh, heck yeah. And we're recording. Most of us here met you on Kiko Lab, and really great to see you here on the block party. We're in a really cool conversation. You're actually just in time, perfect timing, August. I'm going to screen share here, and then we're remind me, somebody, that we've got a video to play from Dot in a little bit here, as soon as we're ready. So I wanted to screen share. Let me just get it ready for that. Okay. All right, there we go. So what we're talking about is creating this universal calendar for the Internet of Conversations, but specifically focused on conversations which are transformational and in the direction of saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. So with that as context, let me screen share here. So I kind of see it as sort of three concentric circles. The biggest one is the Internet of Conversations, and this covers conversations about anything, including things we totally despise. Okay, so this is the realm of total freedom of expression, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of like the internet itself, it can be used for anything. Now, the tiniest circle here in the very middle is what we've been focusing on the last couple hours, which we're just calling this: transforming, healing, and intentionally saving, as an alternative to the acronym SHIT, saving, healing, and intentionally transforming. But we're really talking about the same thing. We're talking about, well, here, down here, I drew up a little picture on it. What my perspective is on this, just to be clear on it. And I see it as somewhat of a pyramid, where at the bottom, the foundation of it is something I'm referring to as collective agency. We have the agency to transform ourselves, humanity, and in fact, all of life on Earth. We have the agency, the power to come together and co-create and implement all the solutions that we need, whether it's feeding everyone plant-based foods, cooling the planet through SRM, transforming our politics, our economics, our entire set of living arrangements, our story, our culture, social norms, and on and on and on and on. Now, on top of that foundational bedrock, which I've been referring to over the course of the last week as this sort of missing elephant in the room, because it seems to me like too often we've gone straight to the CSI layer, collective superintelligence, which we focus on a lot right here in the Block Party. And that's all about the network of conversations, the universal calendar supporting and illuminating that network of conversations, all the tools and systems for connecting people with conversations, connecting conversations with other conversations, et cetera, et cetera. And that is not an end in itself. That is a means to an end. And it's a means to several ends, all of which, all these benevolent ends, I would encapsulate in a single word: strategy. What is the strategy for saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth? And among myriad possible strategies, the one I personally like the best is the one that I symbolize here with this V, partly because it's two rows of dominoes that we can tumble over, where just like the movie V for Vendetta, there's one single domino we push over first, which is food healers, feeding everyone in the world plant-based foods. That in turn will kick off two rows of dominoes going, one which is all about meeting the needs of humanity, the basic needs of humanity, and the other which is all about meeting the needs of Mother Earth. And the first domino, food healers, is common to both. And I think it's the starting point for both, because it's about feeding everyone, which is the most basic human need. And it's about feeding them plant-based foods, which is arguably the single most important thing we can do for Mother Earth, is ending animal agriculture for all the reasons that we know so well. And once we kick off that first domino, can you imagine a world in which everyone is fed? right? I believe that regardless of whether you can imagine it or not, once we do it, I believe that will begin a process of radical transformation where we fundamentally recognize that, yes, we can meet the needs of all of humanity, the basic needs as basic human rights. And as we do that, we liberate humanity from the all-day monopoly game, thus empowering and freeing up humanity to finally focus on the passenger sitting next to us in the airplane, and we can help her with her oxygen mask. And lo and behold, it's our Mother Earth. And the first thing she needs is SRM. We all need SRM, solar radiation management, to cool the planet. But anyway, that's a bit of a digression, and thank you for listening to all of that. But back to the main story here is all of this is what I refer to as this. This at the center of the circle is this. And, you know, it's arguably very radical. For me, it's obvious to me, and I can't wait for the day that it's obvious to everyone, because once it is, together, we will embrace our collective agency. Together, we will embrace collective superintelligence. That will empower us to talk about strategy. And through talking about strategy, I believe it's inevitable we'll come upon some optimal strategy, which will look something like this. Maybe it'll have 3 rows of dominoes instead of 2. I don't know. Okay, but it'll be something like that. So with that as context, now let me get back to this big picture circle and say, okay, if this or something like it is where we want to get to as the center, and we live within a larger internet of conversations, which again includes all kinds of conversations, including conversations we despise, is there some sort of a middle ground platform that we can build whereupon this can be prominent and really get the attention little by little of everyone? This again being this, I'll just make it explicit down here. This is Jamin's conceptualization of this, this pyramid. And if so, what would that middle ground look like? I've put on the table as a possibility that we make this, we call this middle ground SNAC.bar, the social network of actual conversations, where the main filter from the larger internet of conversations is actual, simply the word actual, okay? What do I mean by actual? Actual conversations. Actual conversations about things that matter, okay? And with that, I'll go back on screen share. So what I'm proposing here is that we create this decentralized universal calendar simply with the focus of actual conversations. We're not trying to create, you know, the Facebook of conversations. We're focusing on instead a network of actual conversations about things that matter. And then within that, we can make this or shit or whatever that radical pyramid is, we can make that prominent. And we can make that even at the center of the SNAC.bar menu. Anyway, thank you all for indulging in my current synopsis of the world and what I think of as most urgent. And with that, I pass the talking feather and a nod that we have a video that Dot wants to play. Dot, could you give us a synopsis of what the video is about, just so we can place it within the flow here? And with that, I'll pass the talking feather. Going on mute.
Yeah, open source collaborative solving housing. It's a big issue, and I'm looking forward to watching it either here or later on, because it's a really important issue for me, which comes in with this conversation. I'd just like to say, if I may, Jamin, that just to, not challenge the narrative, but my perspective, I'm not sure that there is a middle ground. I think it's very important that everything should be within the context of transforming, healing, and intentionally saving. Because you have to look at what else is going on. A lot of platforms are put out there and they're designed, I mean, they've got a business model very often, and they're put out there to allow people to engage. But what very often happens, because they're not moderated, because they don't have a specific purpose, they tend to gravitate towards certain types of conversations. There is no social platform that I'm aware of that moderates within the confines of a clear perspective. Facebook is just censored. That's not the same thing at all. And increasingly Twitter. So I would think that, this needs to almost be like around, instead of being in the middle, maybe it belongs around the outside, and everything has to take place within that parameter.
Very good. Very good point. Very good point. This is the kind of grappling that I think we need to be engaging in right now, all of us with an open mind and an open heart, recognizing we haven't hit on the answer yet, and that's what we're groping around for. So very good. Should we have explicit filters from the outset? Hey, and if so, what are those filters? Beyond something that's kind of vague, like actual conversations, that's admittedly vague, and where I really want to get to is this pyramid. I mean, my conceptualization of it is, it has agency as the foundation, collective superintelligence as the next level up from that, strategy is the thing that we apply our collective superintelligence towards, and then ultimately an optimal strategy, like what I have symbolized with the V, the 2 rows of dominoes, right? But I'm not attached to that, but I think that's what this is. But here's the thing, I don't want to require that, hey, for you to jump in and be part of the universal calendar, you have to, sign up to this, which is, kind of a lot of filters there, one could say. And Dot says, I think sentience should be the foundation. And there's already, there's not necessarily going to be instant agreement on what should be the foundation, the next layer on top of that, the next layer on top of that. So how do we come to terms, right? How do we create a universal calendar that's both sufficiently open and sufficiently focused? It's this kind of, we've got to find this balancing point, right? Marco has his hand up, and then I'd love to play the video that Dot shared. Go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, I think that's still the minimum bar, like we set for the press conference, would apply to the universal calendar as well. That minimum bar, but then once that's the broader group, the more the group that'll possibly that'll definitely be more open to this, and from that more broader group, all being together, to be able to search each other, find each other, those will get enough of the people that'll find this, and that'll be all we need. that'll be our tipping point.
I agree with what you just said, Marco. I think you've said it very well. And you pointed to something without naming it, which is the minimum bar for the press conference. And that minimum bar is basically, are you doing something or talking about something which is fundamentally directed at saving, healing, and or transforming life on earth, right? According to who? According to what standard? According to yours, right? And, there were a lot of non-vegans who showed up at the first press conference, right? And without blessing their non-veganness, we said, welcome. We're here to listen. We're here to give you a space to talk. That's what I'm talking about with the middle ground. And as soon as I put up the pyramid, pre-vegan, thank you, Sarah. As soon as I put up the pyramid, Dot says, hey, I think the foundational layer should be sentience, not agency. And so, how are we all going to come to agreement on what this even is? Which is why I'm saying, let's create a little bit more space. Let's give ourselves a little bit of room, because as convinced as many of us are that veganism is an absolute must, you're also going to have people walking in here and saying, hey, for whatever this is, Christianity is an absolute must. Others will come in and say, no, Islam is an absolute must. Others will say, no, it's Hare Krishna, and Simon says, yes, that's me. Be gentle with me. I love it. I agree. That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. Let's create kind of like, here's the thing. We're all meeting here on the internet, right? HTTP. We're not all agreeing that, hey, HTTP is great. It's the best thing. It's just this open enough platform. We say, okay, in the words of sociocracy, good enough for now, safe enough to try. Okay, fine. I'll jump into this Zoom meeting. That doesn't mean that we're asking you to believe in anything. We're just saying, come and let's meet. So I'm proposing SNAC.bar as a sufficiently open space to say, hey, let's come and meet. Let's have actual conversations about all of this. And within this, we can hopefully hone in and perfect this. And maybe it's only 5% of us that even want to be in that conversation at all. But the other 95 that surround it are kind of this vital ecosystem that we can draw upon, right? And that everyone can draw upon. So anyway, with that, I'd like to propose that we take a 5-minute break from talking and watch the 5-minute video that Dot has shared. Give me a quick thumbs up if you're good with that. Okay, great, thanks. This is about open housing, open source. So let me get this, let me screen share that. And here we go. Screen sharing.
Hi, my name is Marcin.
And I'm Katerina.
For a few years now, we've been developing the Global Village Construction Set, a set of the 50 industrial machines for building civilization from scratch.
Based on that, I started a new open source project with the goal of making ecological housing easier, cheaper, and faster.
So we joined forces.
This collaboration began 2 years ago. After we got married, I moved from Brooklyn, New York to the middle of nowhere, Missouri, and realized our house was too small. I wanted something comfortable and affordable that could be built quickly from local materials and that could be expanded as we grow. We were surprised that no one could build this for us, so we had to build it ourselves.
So we did just that. We examined the best practices, we took out the high-power brick press, and through much trial and error, developed a formula for rapid builds. A large team of people builds a number of modules in parallel and then assembles them rapidly into a building. We realized that using these techniques, we could build an 800 square foot structure from scratch in just 5 days. Wow. This was worth spreading, but we have to make it easier.
So we set out to do exactly that. First, we created a library of modules, which can be put together like building blocks. You can now download a collection of walls, roofs, doors, and windows, and design a complete buildable structure using open source software. To make this accessible to everyone, we're also working on guides for design, build, and development. Imagine having all the tools you need to design your own home easily and for free.
Second, the system allows you to build an unlimited choice of structures. That's why we're crowdsourcing building designs so that you can have a wide variety to choose from. For example, you can build a 700 square foot expandable starter home loaded with ecological features for under $25,000 in materials. So rather than getting into debt with an average $360,000 new home, you can start with a smaller home at 1/10 the cost and then expand as needed. You can also add an aquaponic greenhouse option, which allows a family to produce all the fish and vegetables that they could eat.
But not everyone wants to build their own house. To address that, we're creating a training program for builders so you can hire an OBI builder if you want. This program will be a real deep dive into construction, from design and materials production to rapid build organization and business, including building the construction machines themselves, which we can do in a single day.
And it gets even better. Imagine being able to source most of your building materials from 50 miles around your build site. This is exactly what we're aiming for with our solar-powered materials production facility. Did you know that the construction sector is the biggest polluter on the planet? We can solve this by producing local brick, lumber, insulation, paint, glazing, and lime concrete using 100% solar power. But pulling this off requires a huge amount of know-how, and our secret sauce is open source. That's why we're inviting everyone to join this common platform by submitting new designs and improvements into the system.
We have also recruited an amazing array of experts to help with all the technical details. The goal is to attain Living Building Challenge certification, which is the highest standard for regenerative construction.
Today, the average American spends over $1.2 million over their life just to secure a home. And 1.6 billion people on this planet live without adequate housing.
Housing is a basic need. It's not a privilege. And architect Alejandro Aravena suggests that the best way to approach it is to channel people's own building capacity.
If this idea is truly sound, then the time to open source construction is now. This Kickstarter will fund further development of all the system components, next iteration prototyping and testing of the starter home with greenhouse, creation of an immersion training program, and build of the solar-powered materials production facility. Support us and pass this on to your friends.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Isn't that just mind-blowing? This is collective intelligence in action. And so, for example, within this middle ground that I'm talking about, that would fit squarely within there, right? It's about how, under the housing section, right? Which, as you'll notice from my own screen share from a few minutes ago, happened to be the second domino. I'm just going to flash it on the screen real quick. Where is it? Right there. The second domino, as you can see here, right after food healers in the humanity column, right? Mother Earth doesn't need housing. She needs SRM. She needs trees, etc. But anyway, so basically within this middle ground, there's space for all these dominoes. But at the center of the middle ground is a thing called this, and that's really kind of more, for lack of a better word, the hardcore, more radical, more like, let's get right to the heart of it. But as we experienced and as we planned for the press conference, we said, back in November, thepressconference.org, we said, hey, let's open this up so that anyone who's doing something benevolent can feel welcome here and have their 2 to 5 minutes of fame, right? So anyway, with that, I'll pass the talking feather. I'll also check in on the chat and see what we got going on here.
Can I say something? I'm increasingly fantastic conversation, but I'm really thinking that this again is not in the middle, it's around the outside. What I mean by that, if somebody came to the platform and they're committed to transforming, healing, and intentionally saving the planet, let's just say they come to the environment and they feel that it's not important to even think about veganism. You know, they're a committed carnivore, they don't see a problem with that. If they came to this because they were interested in transforming, healing, etc., then they would at least be receptive and open-minded to those within the environment who believe that veganism is integral. So they would cut that. I think that's the key, an open mind. As long as you commit to this transforming aspect, so it is a recognized environment, it's not a free-for-all, we're here for a purpose, which is transforming, healing, and intentionally saving all life on Earth. If you come to that environment with that understanding, but you don't think being a vegan is important, at least you'll be receptive to those within the environment who believe that it is, or indeed with any other aspect. If you feel that, you know, we can do all this transforming aspect at the same time as maintaining nuclear power. You know, you would come there and you would find people that would want to have that conversation about whether that's actually viable. Or you might come to it and believe that maintaining the profit motive is okay. And you would find people that would believe that it's not possible to transform the planet whilst maintaining a trade-based exchange profit motive environment. So like I said, I think that this bit is not in the middle, it's around the outside.
I love it. What's coming to mind is the walls of the city. We need to define the walls of the city. It's as simple as that. And at the entrance, right, what does the sign say above the entrance? I think this is a great expression of, hey, this is what we're creating in this intentional city. This is the intention of this intentional city.
2 minutes, I'll be back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I really think we're getting there. And so the universal calendar would not be for the entire internet of conversations, but it would be for this specific intention. What's this intention? It's this: transforming, healing, and intentionally saving life on Earth. And it's interesting, in the intentionally saving, embedded within those two words, intentionally saving, is agency, that we can intend to save life on Earth. We can do it. We have the agency. Speaking of agency, Sir Roland, welcome. We are recording, having a great conversation here. And with you here, now it's perfect. All righty.
Question: do you think that part of our role is helping people save themselves, or like teaching them and guiding them to learn how to sort of save themselves, right? Because like is sort of our job as almost as like a teacher, right? Because then it stays with them longer, and then they can sort of pass the torch along to who they're helping next.
Yeah, I see it as both teaching and also giving, right? So it's beyond just teaching, beyond just giving information, but also giving food. because someone who's starving, has no land, no resources, no money, they need food and water and probably healthcare and shelter. And, so yes, I'm all about teaching and showing. I'm also about giving, right? And, but that's also just an integral part of the conversation, is, hey, what should, society be offering the individual, and what should the individual be offering society? It's all, this is fair game. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's just my perspective, but I pass back the talking feather. And you're on mute there, August.
Oh, sorry. I'm just thinking. I'm just the thing that I keep thinking about is, like, there are so many people out there, right? And there's no practical way to sort of scale help. But I think, like, the best way we can do that is to sort of, like, teach people the skills, right? The skills to help each other and to be what's the word? And to be moldable, right? To be able to move and change, sort of change your mind, right? I think that's also, like, a really important lesson. Have you seen that quote about, like, the only way to change systems is to change each other, or to change our minds, because ultimately we make up the systems that we are a part of?
Yeah, good stuff. I sort of see it as a thing of three, again, a scaling of three. There's the individual, there's their very local immediate community, and then there's the whole world, right? And in terms of scaling up, one of the things that we're talking about here today, and that is just an ongoing focus of ours, is making healthy, immune-boosting, plant-based foods a basic human right and a basic public good that we offer and deliver to everyone. And that can be scaled up. We're starting in Los Angeles, California, and scaling it up from there. And we're going to be getting into the details on that shortly, actually. But right now we're really focused on, this virtual community, this intentional city in the clouds, if you will, which has been another ongoing theme here. And how do we bound that? How do we hold it? How do we define it? How do we brand it? How do we promote it so that there's clarity, and so that all these other communities and conversations can feel welcome and come on in and be part of the universal calendar and this intentional city, for lack of a better word? Not an intentional community, because that intentional community is something I think of as much smaller, much tighter, with its own sort of charter and its own, focus and whatnot. But an intentional city like New York City, not to suggest that New York City is an intentional city, but just by analogy, can have lots and lots of boroughs and neighborhoods and, intentional communities within it, right? So we're basically trying to figure out the wrapper, the branding, the city walls, the entry gate, the big banner at the gate of entry that says this is what we're about, and welcome, et cetera, et cetera. And universal calendar is one of the basic public goods that we offer to the intentional city, and really to the world, so that the world can see what's going on inside this intentional city, and why is this a great place to visit? Passing the talking feather. And since no one's jumping in, I'll just add that among the different wrappers that are sort of candidate wrappers or brands or, conceptualizations of this, are this, THIS, the acronym, Transforming, Healing, and Intentionally Saving. Another is SNAC.bar, the social network of actual conversations. Another is ICIC, the intentional city in the clouds. And I personally am open to hearing whatever other suggestions are out there, but we need to, I think we've got an opportunity here to start something which may be centralized for starters, but the goal is to decentralize it and really make it open and accessible to all. And as I'm talking and I'm seeing, welcome back, Simon, I realized I hadn't addressed this topic about the money thing sufficiently, as I had promised to a bit ago, where because what we're doing is so foundational and so fundamental, I imagine that as it grows, people will want to donate to it and contribute to it and support those who are really working on it. And I have some kind of vague ideas about how that could happen. I mean, the most obvious is just have a donation button. But beyond that, I think there are some blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFT opportunities there, so that people can be compensated and that generous donors can get really inspired by what we're co-creating and be inspired to donate and contribute. As well as just normal everyday users and say, wow, this is so valuable here. I'm happy to contribute. Thank you so much, everyone, for keeping the lights on. Let me throw some money into the basket, kind of thing. With that, I'll go on mute and pass the talking feather. Love this conversation. Oh my goodness. I feel like we're really getting somewhere.
Right. That's great. I'm fully on board with that idea of, you know, people donating, but you've still got the headache that the thing needs to be funded up front. And what I'm saying is I've got some money for that. And, you know, some people need to say up front, you know, I'm prepared to make the commitment up front and I'm happy to contribute as I can. So yeah, and in terms of who's going to actually put it together, it's great that you're talking to Vincent. I think that's what we need to decide, who we're going to actually call upon and what their expectation is in terms of people. You know, it's time and people have got to earn a living in the short term until we get off this all-day Monopoly game. So that's the challenge we're dealing with all the time, isn't it, really? So if Vincent's our man, then, or the other chap, that's what we need to decide, who we're going to actually ask with the expertise and capability to put this thing together, because then we can apply it.
Beautiful. Totally agree. Well, I've got some money to contribute to it as well. So there's our start, right? Between you and me and whoever else wants to jump in. Many hands make heavy work light. Feel free to jump in and let's make this happen. So let's talk. I say let's talk with Harshek. If we could have a meeting with him, that would be awesome. I'll be meeting with Vincent one-on-one tomorrow for a couple hours and digging in. That'll be kind of late in the day, you know, over here. So it'd be late at night for you. But anyway, I mean, this is just kind of an initial one-on-one that we're going to have. But let's, you know, let's bring in all the people we need into this conversation. You and me, Simon, whoever the developers are going to be, and whoever else is passionate about this and wants to join. And welcome, Forrest. Great to see you here. Forrest writes, what real world applicability does this effort want to achieve? Because from my perspective, this effort is slowly growing, yet the best leader is the doer. For instance, where is the land to actually build by example? So I think that refers to the housing example. Very shortly, we're going to be shifting gears and talking about the food healers program in Los Angeles that we're starting, or that more appropriately, Sister Ivy started years ago, and we're now excited to expand. And Sarah is playing an important leadership role in that expansion, expanding it into the parks of Los Angeles. So we'll be shifting gears soon enough to talk about that. so, but I think, so we're working on multiple levels. The virtual level, bringing in this virtual community, this intentional city in the clouds, precise branding TBD, right? But then within that, as people organize around specific topics and conversations, like around food healers, the people that want to get together and make the food thing happen will first congregate in the cloud and then agree where to meet in person and make actual projects happen in person. Same with housing. We first meet in the cloud in conversation, and then we say, okay, great, let's all meet up in this place in Missouri in the Ozarks and make this happen. Right? But through the meeting in the virtual realm first, they're able to plan, right?
Can I ask, do you think it's a good idea maybe to ask Kiko Lab to allocate some time for this on Monday?
I would love that. They, at last Monday's meeting, they put up some significant resistance to this focus on the universal calendar. And they, seem to be on their own path in terms of developing certain aspects of collective intelligence. But I don't think they're anywhere near as on fire as you and I and most of the people in this room, if not all the people in this room, about making the universal calendar happen as the backbone of this, for lack of a better word, intentional city, right, that we're co-creating. That just doesn't seem to be their path. I'm in a very impassioned and very, good feeling, very good feeling. It's not a debate or anything. It's just a very good feeling, impassioned virtual conversation with them through email at the moment about all this, where I'm really making the case that we need to do this, create this space for this network of conversations to come together and congeal, where the universal calendar is just this fundamental, backbone to it. Those houses in the video that we just saw, they all have a foundation, right? And they have a basic structure, a basic framing. For me, the universal calendar is the most fundamental foundation and framing for the house that we're building, right? But other foundational elements include the brand. What is the URL? What is the website? What is the meme, right? How do you describe what we're doing in 30 seconds or less, right? And that's what we've been focused on here in the last hour or two. And I'd love to pass it around. So basically everything that we're talking about here, what is your favorite, current favorite name for this? Not that we need to decide this now by any stretch, but just to at least give it a pass on the spiral. Do you like ICIC, Intentional City in the Clouds? Do you like, and I need to follow up on the chat here. I see there's a lot of stuff in the chat, so I'll probably take a minute and read through that. Do you like SNAC.bar? Do you like this? What do you like, and how do you, and how do you see that going viral, for example?
I'm gonna have to duck out in a minute, but personally, my favorite by far is this, and I don't even think you need to confuse it. We need to compete, for want of a better word. So what we're talking about here really is sales and marketing.
Yeah.
And this is a really strong brand because it lends itself to so many other things in terms of, you could say, this is it, this is the solution, this now. And it is all the other things. It is the SNAC.bar, it is the intentional community in the sky. So to try and combine it with other acronyms somehow dilutes it. It is all it needs to be. That's my perspective. I'm open-minded, but my reaction to this conversation at the moment, and when Silas first said it, it seemed to tick all the boxes that other things tick some of the boxes. For example, shit, I get the impact aspect, but it also offends some people. So, you know, you've got to weigh that up. Well, I don't think this is going to offend anybody. And at the same time, it does stick in the mind first time.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me, I'll definitely be thinking a lot about this over the course of the weekend. It's one facet is the brand. Another is the focus. Another is the universal calendar. Another is, you know, what other elements do we want? Are we creating this as a social network? Are we creating this just as a website with a calendar? You know, and what else can we bring to it? Like I mentioned earlier, one of the assets that we have is we have a 24/7 community right here. This Zoom room is open 24/7. Marco and Alan, wave your hands. I want people to see the heroes who are holding up. These are the Samsons who are holding up the cathedral, right? Christopher is another. Everyone you heard does their part. I'm here 3 days a week for many hours doing a kind of a more concentrated effort. But anyway, this is another thing we bring to the table is a 24-hour Zoom room, a 24-hour, you know, coffee house in the clouds in the intentional city. So you walk in the gate and boom, there's bright lights that say open 24/7. Come on in, have a cup of vegan coffee and let's talk. So anyway, I've just made a quick little synthesis of the elements that we can either include or not include or partially include or whatever, you know. So we want to shift gears to food here in a couple of minutes. As I promised an hour ago, Simon said, you said you need to duck out soon. So I want to take advantage of the last couple of minutes that we've got you here, give you the last words. But again, what is the it? Is it a community? Is it a website? Is it a social network? Is it a calendar? What is the it, right, that we're building here? What's the name? What's the meme? What's the framing? What does it include? Do you have to pay for it? And does it include the 24/7 conversation? Does it include the press conference as a value-added, you know, asset? What does it include? What does it not include? What are the filters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? How are we going to manage it? Go ahead, Simon.
Yeah, you're right. I need to go now. I just want to thank you for your tenacity. I do think you're right. It's starting to pay off. But just following on from what you were saying there, the thing about it is it doesn't need to be complete. I mean, I know from things that I've done previously that you don't necessarily know what you want it to do in entirety at the outset. So to get Vincent or whoever, anybody else to design anything which they understand is the start, so that can evolve as a consequence of feedback until we get, well, it'll never be perfect. It'll continue to, I mean, like Facebook, they're still, you know, they got any number of guys working on it all the bloody time. We need something similar, something that evolves, but start somewhere. And I know you've got this sense of urgency. So what we need is something that is viable, a minimum viable product, as soon as we can put it together.
Totally agree. Love it. Love it. Love it. Let's focus on the minimum viable product, and we can always rebrand it later. We can add to it later. We can do all kinds of stuff later, but let's get started on that minimum viable product. And let's also take a look at some of the open source options that Alan kindly put in the chat. For now, I and Sarah and Sister Ivy, Sarah, give me a sign if you're connected at the moment. We need to talk food in the next 35 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this recording so that we can shift gears. But before I do, let me thank everyone for being here. Really awesome contributions, everyone. Everyone's welcome to stay. Everyone's welcome to come and go. And the block party continues, and we're going to figure out the logistics of food in a moment.